this is Writers Row. I'm DC Wright-Hammer, and if you haven't heard, this is going to be a one-man show, at least for some episodes, and one host show moving forward. So David Gain has officially retired from Writers Row. He had a lot of obligations that he needed to take care of, and related to other things regarding writing, and it became too much. And I'll put a link in the description down below to the last official video with him in it. We actually have one we recorded that we haven't released, but his official goodbye was in the previous episode to this one, and so if you haven't checked that out, make sure to do that. And if you've been watching the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please take an opportunity to do that. Really motivates me to continue to put out more content. So I wanted to give a quick update on the show, the format and direction moving forward, now that we've had a little bit of time to digest the change in hosts. So I want to do more of these type of episodes where I record myself. There'll be shorter episodes, they'll be more concise, hopefully more personal, where I'm kind of talking to you, watcher, viewer, person. I think we've mentioned in a lot of episodes that writing is a very solitary effort. We can get stuck in our own heads, and yeah, putting words on the page is good, and it's a great outlet, but I think sometimes we need that social interaction, and it can be tough to get it in our personal lives. Many of us become writers as an outlet, as to some extent an escape, where we get to build a world, we get to create characters, and we get to drive a story, a narrative in the direction that we want it to go. We have all this power and control over the direction of our story and characters, and sometimes we do that to compensate for maybe feeling like we have a lack of control in our personal lives. And so the format for Writers Row is going to continue to be topic driven. It's going to continue to be guest driven, where the guests and I discuss the topic at hand. And you know, in the past, those topics are just things that I think are interesting, or things that David thought were interesting, and we'd bring them to the table and we discuss, and we try to figure out a good guest to talk about those things with. And that was pretty much it. There wasn't a ton of planning behind it. There wasn't, major production effort going on, if you haven't already figured that much out. But we did put a lot of thought into it, and I'm going to continue to do that. I have been less active in writing community on Twitter for some time now. I mentioned in the previous episode that I've had a lot of things going on in my personal life, and I think that's it. That's why this change in format and David, going away and things being a little bit different. I'm actually somewhat relieved. There's difficulty in change, but sometimes it's necessary. And as sad as I was to see David go, I'm very happy that he figured out what was bugging him, for months, and he addressed it. As a friend, I am thrilled that he pinpointed what was wrong, and he came up with an action plan to figure it out. And I think that me personally, what it has done for me is it's made me think about where I am. And I just went through a major job change where I'm commuting. I have a longer commute by about an hour each way each day. So it's a couple extra hours I don't have to dedicate to family, myself, Writers Row. But it was a really good change, and I think it was a necessary change. And I think paralleling that with being writers and how we evolve as writers, I think it's important to reflect on everything you've done as a writer, even if it's only been, compared to others, it might not be this massive collection of work. But where are you as a writer? Figuring that much out. Where do you want to go as a writer? What are your goals? What are your definitions of success? I've mentioned that on previous episodes. And how does that fit with where your personal life is? And I don't think we think about things that structured often. I think for most of us, we're just kind of surviving day after day, day in and day out. We're just trying to get by. And having an opportunity, I was actually reading David Gaines' tweets this morning that he does early pages. I can't remember the exact name of it, where he'll get up early and he'll just free write 3 pages, something like 700 words or something. He'll just type. And the point is not to come up with great content. The point is to get whatever's going on in your head out of it, to sort of free you up to think in a better, more structured way, to get things out that are bugging you, that might be roadblocks. And so it was either early pages, I can't remember. But I think that's a great exercise. I think it's good for him. And I think, other people might get something out of doing an exercise like that. But if you are watching this episode, if you have been watching Writer's Row, I guess the theme or the topic for this episode is to ask yourself, how are you doing? And not in a, obviously not in a small talk kind of way, like you ask somebody on the elevator, oh, how you doing? And you talk about weather and all that stuff. But a real focused, how are you doing? And start to come up with some describers, some adjectives that really pinpoint how you're doing. Maybe you're stressed, which is where David and I found ourselves over the last 3 months, really. Maybe, and for me personally, it's been about 6 months that I've been kind of riding a stress high and just kind of surviving. How are you doing? Maybe you are in a good situation, but maybe you can challenge yourself to do more if you are in a good situation. Maybe you can expand your limits. So you've been doing X amount up into this point, and you feel like you're doing really good. Do you have anything more in you? That's another, so it's not just how you doing and trying to figure out if you're not doing well or not, if you are doing well. But over the last couple of months, I've asked myself, how am I doing? And it hadn't been very good. And I knew I needed to make changes that I was working toward. But getting to those changes took a lot of effort, a lot of mental cycles. And that's taken away from writing. That's taken away from making content for Writer's Row. But overall, it's put me in a better place mentally. It's allowed me to absorb losing a co-host for this really awesome YouTube channel we've been able to start and get over 500 followers. We never thought it would be that big, and it's a big deal. And in the last episode, we talked about creator burnout, content creator burnout, and that was part of the issue that David and I were having. But you get pulled in a lot of directions. And as I was mentioning, as a writer, you tend to take on more things and think that those things are going to set you up for success. And sometimes that's true. That next thing you do, you might get the right exposure, you might meet the right people, it might hit the right marketing campaign, and things might go off well. But in general, you really want to focus your efforts. You really want to pick your battles, and you really want to get rid of any distractions that are stopping you from how are you doing, number one, and what do you need to do to feel like you're doing well. What are your writing goals, and how does that fit into your personal life? And so I'm just going to leave it at that. These episodes where it's just me, I don't want them to be too long. ask yourself how you're doing. Ask yourself where you're going in life, in writing, um, and just take stock of where you're at. And if something needs to change, come up with a plan. You don't have to rush into anything, um, but just start taking steps to that change, and just start thinking about where you'd rather be headed. Um, and so that's pretty much it. I appreciate everybody who has watched all of our any of our episodes. Give this episode a thumbs up if you like this. If you want to tell me in the comments below how you're doing, if you want to tweet, tag me or anything on Twitter, if you want to DM me and tell me how you're doing. This channel has always been about helping others. So reach out if you need anything from me, and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. But I do care about how you're doing, and I hope you do the best that you can. So with that, I'll catch you next time, and thanks again.